I want to talk about foundations for a moment. Maybe some of you tuning in are in the building trades. Probably a lot of you are not. But whether or not you know anything about building, I think that what we can all agree on is that for a building and a structure to stand, it has to be built on a firm foundation. I'm thinking of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. One of the reasons why it's leaned all of these years is that it was not built on a firm foundation. It was built on mud and clay. And some years ago, to keep that tower from completely toppling over, they shored up the foundation so that it wouldn't fall. Now, of course, they left a lean in it so that it would still be the Leaning Tower, but they had to shore up the foundation so it wouldn't fall. Foundations are important. Some years ago, I led one of many missions trips to Ensenada, Mexico. It was our first trip, and we were asked to build a new church building for a church that was new there. And I remember accumulating as many contractor type people that I could, and the hope was that we were just going to go to this place and we're going to knock it out. We're going to build this thing in a week, and it was going to be the best church building ever built. And when we showed up, we realized that they poured the foundation already. They had already poured the concrete pad that the building was going to be built upon. And what we noticed in the first 5 minutes on the site is that the foundation wasn't level. At some points, it was almost 4 inches out of level. And they wanted to build a second story on this thing. And of course, any problem that you encounter on the first floor is only accentuated on the second floor. And so we had to spend 2 days shoring up that foundation before we could even build a wall. I want to suggest to you today that maybe some of our foundations need to be shored up. Jesus talked about foundations in the Gospels, and he talks about the importance of a good foundation. He's been teaching to a crowd, and he concludes his teaching in Matthew 7 by saying, "Everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash." Well, friends, I don't need to tell you that we're in the midst of a storm. It might be beautiful and sunny here in my backyard, but I know and you know that the storm is raging all around us. And the question is, how is your foundation weathering the storm? And I'm speaking to everybody. I'm speaking to people who know Jesus. I'm speaking to people who don't know Jesus. Because I think that this has leveled the playing field for all of us and really helped us to look at our foundations and see what our lives are built upon. And the reality is, the strength of a foundation is not proven until there's some sort of crisis, until there's some sort of calamity, until there's a storm that is raging around us. Now, I want to be vulnerable with you for a moment and say that over these past days and weeks, as I've been self-isolating in my home, I, like many of you, have had a fair amount of time to think and to reflect. And I think that God has been showing me the parts of my life, the parts of my foundation that were a little sandy. The storm has come and is eroding those places away. And my life is firmly planted on Jesus, but there are areas in my life, maybe my dependence on my finances, or my dependence on the fact that I'm an American citizen and I live in a land of abundance. Those things are shakeable. And I've noticed that there are some areas that I need to shore up. And Jesus, in his goodness and his love, has showed me some of those places that I need to almost push my house over so that it is firmly planted on the rock of my salvation. Jesus says that he is the rock. And so, friends, maybe this is a time where we embrace the reality of our foundations and to take the opportunity to shore them up in the God who is unshakable. I believe that the only way that we're going to make it through this life, and particularly this storm that we find ourselves in, is to be planted on the rock, Jesus. Listen, God is gracious. He abounds in grace and love. And his gospel, his good news, is for everyone. The Apostle Paul says in Romans chapter 5, but we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who has been given to us. I'm going to be talking more about perseverance this Sunday at Newbridge Church in James chapter 1. I hope that you'll join us online for church. And I want to leave you with these words of the psalmist out of Psalm 62, verse 7. My salvation and my honor depend on God. He is my mighty rock. He is my refuge. God bless you.